Before we start, let me go ahead and pray for us real quick. Lord Jesus, thank you for this evening, and thank you for all the information we're about to receive. We just ask that you make us receptive. We know this is a lot of information, but the cause is great. So bless Christy as she presents, and help us to be receptive. In Jesus' name, amen.
You can take notes, or you can just take pictures of the screen. But I will put this on my Warriors page, the actual video. Yeah. If you want to follow along while I'm presenting, you can QR it. But if you don't want to, you can just...
Could you keep that up for just a second?
Yeah. All right, just for some levity to get us started.
Right now. And if you think that 30-minute ride home was something, believe me, we've only just begun. You're lying on the floor of some burning building, dying of asphyxia, and you're down in Baltimore having big fun. Weren't you, Vanessa? Isn't that where you were? Didn't you go down there to Baltimore and have big fun, Vanessa? Tell me, didn't you go for big fun?
Mom?
Shut up! Don't you dare open your mouth when I'm asking you a question. Rudy, go to bed. I only hope that you can have this same experience, Vanessa. I hope that one day you come to realize exactly how it feels to think that your child's life is in danger. You have taken us from levels of frenzy, panic, distress, and now that we know you're okay, rage. That's where we are right now, Vanessa. We are in rage because we know that you have been to Baltimore, Maryland, with the wretched, have big fun. Big fun. Isn't that what you had, Vanessa? Didn't you have big fun? Well, let's see now. You had donuts. Had donuts in Wilmington, Delaware. Cliff, tell me, have you ever been to Wilmington for donuts?
Not on the weekend.
There she is, sitting up in the local donut shop in Wilmington, Delaware, sipping hot chocolate and eating crumbs, and the car gets stolen. Now, a normal individual with half a gnat's brain would have said, I'm going home now. But you? Oh, no, not you. You and your 3 friends put yourselves on a bus and go joyride off to Baltimore. All the way to Baltimore.
What were you thinking?
I wasn't thinking.
You got that right.
So I'm pretty sure most of us have been there at some point or another. And I think I get most of my parenting tips from The Cosby Show. I'm Claire. He's definitely Cliff. So if you're ever curious about what our house looks like, it's pretty much like that. All right, so today, last month, we did bedroom 1. It was very much technology. So we're going to do another bedroom, but this one's just a little bit different. And this week we're going to talk about, is your child's bedroom, not your bedroom, your child's bedroom, a place of secrets or a place of rest? So I want you to think for a second. And if you've got grandkids and they come over to your house, same thing applies. Are there bedroom expectations for your children or grandchildren? And we're kind of talking about even routine, but be specific, thinking, what do you allow in that room? Do you allow just reading? Do you allow watching TV? Do you allow listening to music? Is it just for sleeping? Can they eat? Can they drink in there? It's very, very specific of what you allow in that room. So if you're allowing electronics or you're not, where are you allowing them? Food and drink, music accessibility, lighting matters, actually, depending upon your child. Lighting can make a difference. Furniture, how much, the purpose, door open, door closed, when and why, what's the nightly routine? Privacy, how much, how little? Friends in the room, sleepovers in the room. All of these questions lead to that bedroom being secrets or a place of rest. I was really surprised one time when I was teaching high school in San Antonio at the time. We were talking about kids, and she was like, what's some of your rules for your kids? And I was telling her, that if they have friends over, the door needs to be open. And she kind of made my jaw drop because she said, she called me Miss Newman because I'm not Miss Newman, I'm Miss. She was like, Miss, I'll tell you something. She goes, things can happen with the door open. And I literally was like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, yeah. It made me rethink everything because that completely surprised me. I would have thought, oh, the door's open. They're going to be honest. Experimenting happens. Things happen even with the door open. Kids are smart. Kids are stinky. They're stinky too, but they're sneaky. So when we talk about friends in the room, sleepovers in the room, all of that you have to be very, very specific about. And I know that we get real comfortable. We're like, oh, I know that friend. Well, kind of. You kind of do, but do you? Oh, that's just their cousin. That's awesome, but that doesn't mean the cousin's not involved in things that you don't know about. So it's just always being prepared and being careful with your rules and what you're allowing, what you're not allowing. According to healthcare.com, children spending too much time in their rooms is a problem in many families. We know that because especially teenagers, that's always the excuse, oh, they're just in their room. They're just going to their room. Experts agree that kids who spend a lot of time alone in their room might be displaying symptoms of social anxiety or depression. That doesn't mean that is what's happening, but that's just one of the symptoms. Some food for thought. In America in the late 20th century and early 21st century, the bedroom became a more social environment, and people started to spend a lot more time in their bedrooms than in the past. Any idea why? It all revolves around technology. We got gaming, so we we just moved it out of what was the family area into their own. I have my own TV, I have my own, and so I just go into my room and I shut the door and nobody. Correct. They don't have to come out at all. I thought this was interesting. In Japan, the notion of having a bedroom is much less important than it is in the West, especially if it pertains to having private space for personal use. Having a unified house corresponds to having a unified family, a concept so important that areas are seldom personalized, even those pertaining to relationships. So if you walk into a house in Japan, the children may not, in America, we're very much like it's your space, it's your individual space. You can decorate it how you want, it's your bedroom. They will sometimes take out the bedrooms, and it's just one room with everybody just kind of fold out beds, and then they put them away. It kind of moves back to that. Back in the 80s, it was real big in the Hispanic culture where the whole family lived together. Grandma, grandpa, and you'd hear the kids are like, I'm sleeping in the living room, grandma's got my bedroom. That thing, it kind of goes back to that because they're really more about the unification versus the individual in the house. I'm sure there are pros and cons to both of those. All right, since we spend 1/3 of our lives asleep, which I was surprised it was 1/3 of our lives were asleep, then doesn't it make sense for our children's bedrooms to be a place of peace, comfort, relaxation, and rest? In my kids' rooms in our house, their rooms are for rest. They have a few toys in there. We make them go outside. Most of their stuff, they can play in the living room. They can play it outside. I want them around us. I want them where we can see them. If they've got next door neighbors over in their room, our house is kind of small that way. I can hear everything that's happening, but I will keep tabs on it. But again, we also have cameras in our house. But we're very specific. I want them to be in our presence. I don't want them to think they have to go away from us, because if they do that, then obviously there's a potential that they're going to hide something. So, why does this matter? Doesn't it seem like a big deal? The top issues that are identified by parents today, 30% were safety concerns, 16% were academic challenges. That's pretty low from what I thought it would be. 14% were ongoing pandemic challenges. 40% were mental health challenges. 70% were safety and mental health. And if you really think about it, those go hand in hand. Those are pretty much back to back with each other. All right, so we are going to split this up in two parts. This time, we are going to start with bullet point 1. So we're going to talk about safety. school safety and outside of the home safety. Next time, we're going to talk about bullet point number 2. It was a lot, and we would have been here forever if I did both of these today, because it's a lot to unpack. So the living room is typically where the family gathers for fun and tough conversations. So bedroom 2 really is just a bedroom. We're sleeping, our children are getting rest, we're bonding with bedtime stories. That's what we're doing. The living room has to be that place where we're having good times, playing family games, maybe we're watching a movie together, but it's also where we're going to have those family talks, those tough conversations that are going to come up in our home. And some of them, it's table talk. A lot of it do it in their table. Usually when we have a family meeting, if something's going on with the boys, we'll be like, sit on the couch. And then we have our little meeting. We try to keep it from, let's have a serious conversation in your room. Because if you think about the fact that you go in their room, you're having this one-on-one conversation, it's a pretty serious topic, and now you're expecting them to be in a place of peace and go to sleep. So you've kind of combined the two, and you don't really want that. You want them to have a separation of that so they can actually get that rest and the sleep that they need. The conversations are happening elsewhere. School safety. Some of this you may know, but just a lot of the stuff I was looking up online, this is a real big concern for not only parents but students. I think parents are uninformed when it comes to school safety, and that we get misled by the media a lot about how safe our schools are in America. According to a survey of parents, if you look at the years and the projection of the years where they were concerned about school safety, the ones where they're ticked up at the top and they're the highest peak were the years that we had some kind of school shooting. So anything that happened in the United States, it was like, oh my gosh, a major event. Then we were really, really concerned with school safety. Then we had these few years where it was just like it kind of bottomed out a little bit and it wasn't as big of a deal. And then with Uvalde shooting, it went back up again a little bit. And so it obviously, a lot of the fear hangs around what we see in the news and how many times we're hearing about it. The vast majority of school shootings are not at all like the indiscriminate slaughters seen in Nashville. We see a lot of it on TV. And I remember when we first moved here, we heard about Uvalde. And they're like, oh my gosh, Uvalde. Uvalde was a hot mess. And I watched the footage. I don't know if you've watched the footage. We had to watch it in service. If you watch the video, you see there were a lot of mistakes made. The door was left open. Police officers just standing around. I mean, there's a lot of things that went wrong in this one instance. Most of the school shootings that happen, they'll garner information that's not even involved with school. It just happened on school property. It could be on a Saturday. 2 random people got into something and they consider that a school shooting. But it has nothing to do with your children. There have been instances where I remember one year, a student's parent, not one of my students, but it was at Driscoll Middle School, a student's parent, the bus was pulling up and they had hung themselves outside the school. Nothing to do with the students, but it was considered part of the school, so it was considered a school suicide. So research before we assume that all of that happens, because it's one big database and you have to really peel it apart to know. In reality, out of more than 60 million students and staff members in America's schools, there is a 1 in 8 million risk of a school shooting. With that being said, just so that you're comfortable, in Texas, I personally think we probably have the safest schools in Texas, although I will say places like New York City, Washington, D.C., they have more, what do you call when you go in, not radar detectors, metal detectors. So they're a little bit more aggressive that way. But in Texas, every school has its own standard response protocol. And that's throughout the entire state of Texas. Every teacher is aware of it. We have to plan for it. We have to practice it. You'll hear your kids mention it sometimes, So just so that you're clear, and we're all clear on them, the first one is a hold. Most of the time, this is more high school, maybe middle school. That simply means we're going to keep everybody in the classrooms. That can be something as simple as a kid is having an epileptic seizure. And so instead of moving kids through the hallways, they just need everybody to stay in their rooms so that they can move EMS in and about and do whatever they need to do. A kid could have broken their leg at recess. We need to move a wheelchair through the hallway. And so we're just holding kids in their rooms. Sometimes for us in behavior, when a kid is having a problem, we may do a hold so that we can, if we're having to do a transport from a restraint, we don't want a bunch of kids traumatized by seeing us restrain a kid walking them through the hallway, so we'll do a hold. And everybody just kind of stays where they are. It's not really a big deal. Most of the kids don't even, they go on about their business. It's just they stay in one location. When they call secure, it usually just means that something has happened in the area. And it could be a few miles away from the school. It could be a bank robbery down the street. It could be a domestic situation a few blocks over. But they're going to say, go in as secure. Everybody's just going to come into the building. Nobody can leave. Nobody can come in. And everybody just moves about how they were. They just stay in those areas until the police have given the all clear, situation's been cleared, we're done. That just keeps it from somebody coming into the building that's trying to leave.
Did they lock the interior and exterior doors? Just the exterior doors?
Exterior doors on any campus should already be locked throughout the day. This is the interior doors as well, so coming and going, kids have to knock to get in and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a little bit more, we've tightened down the hatches a little bit. That really makes a difference on campuses that are spread out. Like if there's a math wing and a science wing and kids have to go from building to building, they won't be allowed to go from building to building at that time. They just stay within the building. Your evacuate is just move to an announced location. That's usually our fire drills. Students refer to them as fire drills. They're actually called evacuate. And that could also be a chemical spill that we need to move to a different location of the building. However it needs to be, they'll just say evacuate. Shelter, used to be called the tornado drills. So that's just every place they know where they're going to go. They're going to go in the hallway, duck and cover. It's been called so many things over the years, but it also could be, hey, we're on the playground and a bad storm's coming in. We're going to go to our shelter location just until the storm passes. This is the one that everybody is the most concerned about. This is our lockdowns. That, if your kids have not talked to you about that, that's the locks, lights, and out of sight. So all classrooms go dark, all doors are locked, and then everybody has to stay out of sight. And this usually means away from the windows. So if you're in, I don't know much about Canton, but in Van, we have to lock the doors anyways. So if I'm teaching in a classroom, the door is already locked. So any kid that comes to the door has to knock. The teacher has to peek through the window thing because it's covered. And then if it's somebody they know, they can let them in. In the event of a lockdown, they can't even look through the window. It's an automatic, lights off. Kids have been moved from anything that could potentially hurt them or, could fly through the door or whatever. And it's as quiet as can be. If teachers have closets, the kids just go into the closet. And we're quiet until they release. In a real situation, depending upon the campus, there's more concern for the teacher's safety than the kids' safety because the teachers are usually the ones that have to sweep the bathrooms. There's usually one teacher that's been told, okay, if we go into a lockdown, you have to go into the bathrooms and make sure there's no kids in the bathroom. Some of that has changed over the years. Some of that has gone to telling kids, at least if they're older, if you hear something and you're in the bathroom, pick your feet up off the bottom so that nobody sees your feet and stay where you are instead of wandering through the hallways. I've been at some campuses where I've been the one that has to step out into the hallway and physically lock the door from the outside. And you think, great, so I'm going to take a hit for the whole class. I mean, it's not a fun idea. But it is one of those things. But it is safe. And teachers have your kids in mind with safety first. And they're not, as much as they're thinking about their own families, your family is their family. So that lockdown, when it happens, last year in Van, we had a lockdown. It was on my campus. And it was one of those weird situations where you instinctively knew something was wrong because it wasn't a normal lockdown. Mr. Davidson came over the announcements, and you could hear it in his voice. Something was different. And he said, lockdown, this is not a drill, lockdown. And I happened to have two kids in my room at the time. One was an AU student, and the other one was just a behavior student. And that little AU student just kind of went, not a drill, not a drill. And I thought, okay, we're fine. They had Chromebooks. I had a way to block them off, so I just kind of stuck them behind something and said, get on your Chromebook, not a problem. And I'm like, what is going on here? And it was literally, we were all locked down. my room is like off the library. So the library is completely covered and locked down. Well, I'm kind of nosy. And I'm like, we're texting with each other and we're like, what is going on? So I kind of peek out there, and no joke, the parking lot is full of cops, and you're seeing people walk through the hallways with AR whatevers. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna go hang out in my room. And we're texting each other, what's going on, what's going on? What we didn't know at the time was Dr. Davidson, we had heard that the week before that there was an incident in Lindale, that it was a threat. So we were already kind of on alert, hey, this might happen. But when Shelby got the phone call, the person called, talked to him, and said, I'm on your campus right now and I'm currently shooting. And all he hears in the background is shooting. He honestly believed somebody was on campus, somebody had managed to get on campus. So thus the fear in his voice when it was just like, this is not a drill. And so it was enough to scare him, but I will tell you, it was enough to prove to me that you're better off in a small town school than a big city school. I've never seen police move that fast. And I worked in SAISD. I mean, and it was quick. They swarmed fast. It was prepped. It was no joke. So you don't have to worry. What I can tell you is you won't be allowed on the premises. So if you think, oh, this is a lockdown, something's happened, and you even know something's happened, you're not going to be allowed on campus. That's a crime scene. You'll be lucky if you even get close to campus. You will want to make sure that you've got your cell phone on you, but don't encourage your kids to text you. Because one of the things that happened in some of the other prior shootings where kids are texting their parents and they're jamming the lines from police and EMS. And so it's actually a bad thing to be, are you okay? Just pray, hold tight. They've got to figure it out. Kids are not really told that it's not going to be like, hey guys, okay, let's go. They are quick, they are swift, they are not nice. They come in yelling, screaming, evacuating the room, usually hands in the air or hands on your head because they don't really know, is that person in the room? So everybody at that moment is treated like almost like a criminal until they get them outside and they figure out what's going on. So that is something technically you can prepare your kids for is, hey, just follow what they're saying, because there's going to be that moment of hesitation and fear, like, why are they yelling at me? Well, they're yelling at you to save you. They're trying to get you out of the way so they can clear whatever room it is or whatever hallway it is. Anything they have in the room will stay there. I didn't know this as a teacher. We were told that one of the officers said, you think that you'll be able to come back for your car that's on campus, for your purse that's on campus. He's like, no, it's a crime scene. You won't be able to get back to it. And it could be days, it could be weeks. And so those are just kind of the realities of how that works. I'm glad they work as hard as they do. There will be a reunification place, just like if there really was a fire, there will be a reunification location for you and your child, and it'll blast through the district. I will say one of the saddest things I heard from the Uvalde thing, I didn't even think about it, so one of the parents was talking about it, and she said, you're all sitting in a room, so all the parents are in the room waiting for their names to be called, because that's, hey, your kid, your kid, your kid. And she said it starts thinning out, thinning out, thinning out, and then all of a sudden, no more names are being called. And she said it took a little bit for her to realize, my kid's not coming back. They're not calling my kid's name. And so she said that was a very stark reality of, wow, you've just bonded with this room full of people that you never wanted to bond with, and you're all waiting to hear that final, they're not coming back. So I say that to say, schools are safe. Don't believe all the media hype. Schools have a plan. Teachers have a plan. And I've always told my students, I said, look, I will take one for you. I have no issues taking it for you. And you've seen it time and time again at different school shootings where teachers are hovering over kids and protecting your kids. It's better in these small towns, especially because you guys have teachers on campus that are armed. We didn't have that in San Antonio. There were no armed teachers on campus. So they are armed. You will never know which ones they are. But we have teachers they're self-carry. So I don't think you have anything to worry about, but you always want to be on the lookout. In the Sandy Hook shooting that happened, when they did some of the after stuff when they were investigating, one of the things that came up the most was a couple of people noticed that a person had been sitting in their car in front of the school. They thought it was odd. It was just sitting in a truck. Sat there for like almost an hour. Different people coming and going and mentioning that they saw this truck there. They saw this person sitting in a truck. That was the shooter. Nobody said anything to the office and mentioned, hey, there's somebody sitting in the parking lot. It's kind of been there for a while. Nobody said anything. So that kind of see something, say something, that kind of came about from that. So it's super important that if you are picking up your kids at school or you're visiting for lunch and you see something that's kind of off, I'd rather you be overprotective and say, hey, just an FYI, there's someone sitting in their car out there. It looks like they've been there for a while. You'd rather them think, oh, you're the crazy mom that everybody, yeah, I am. I'm going to let you know somebody's sitting out there. So just keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. But for the most part, our schools are really safe, and they're going to take care of your kids in the event of something happening.
Do the kids know this whole plan? Or, okay.
We practice it. So we'll have,
They know what everything means.
yes, they. I will tell you that they know fire drill. They don't know that it's called evacuate, but they know it's a fire drill. And the teachers will say, we're having a fire drill. They know when the really loud alarm goes off. They know practicing for tornadoes. They know all of these, and they really do know those lockdowns. They are very much aware of the lockdowns. And if you walk on, now you can't even really get onto a campus unless you go through the front door and you sign in and you give them your driver's license. I mean, it's so tight. I mean, gone are the days of just walking through a back door. I'm sure Canton does it as well, but in Van, our administrator, every day, several times a day, is checking every single door. She does door checks. And if there's one that was left open, she will send out an email, hey, I did a door sweep. B hallway, you left the back door open. And I mean, they're very vigilant about it. So security has changed. It kind of stinks that it has to be that way, but through different things, Uvalde didn't have to happen. It happened because that door was open. Had the door not been open, would have all been stopped. Sandy Hook, he hadn't gotten past the front office. The one that happened in Nashville, that was targeted. And the media didn't really advertise that. That particular person went after specific people. It wasn't just mass-wide. Columbine, that ties in with the mental health issue that we will talk about. That was a major mental health thing. And so that was a very sad situation, but that's sort of, I think, when all of us opened our eyes to, holy cow, this is no joke anymore. So our nation's schools are safe, and I'm not saying that, nothing's going to happen, but I want you to feel like you're sending your kids to school. You are sending them. Schools are less safe if you're on the playground. And you can go to a ballpark on a weekend. You're less safe and less secure than you are on a school campus. That sounds really weird, but you're more vulnerable outside of a school than you are inside of a school. All right, so as a parent or grandparent, how do we make our children feel safe? Well, we're gonna keep those doors of communication open between us and the children. They may have questions. One year at Spring Branch Middle School that I was at, they thought it was a shooter. I was not on campus at the time, I was at another campus, and they did lockdown. Well, all the kids were in the cafeteria at lunch. They don't practice those drills at lunch. So everybody sort of panicked, and kids, they brought in counselors because kids were just so traumatized from it, even though it wasn't real. It was an accident. Someone accidentally pulled an alarm. But you've got to keep talking to your kids about it, and you've got to keep letting them know there's a plan. If they approach you with it, you say, well, what's your plan? If you're in the cafeteria, what's your plan? Make sure that you're helping them to understand we're going to meet up. Don't worry about me. Take care of you. I will meet up with you, and just keep reminding them that we're gonna meet back up. We're gonna get back together, because they're gonna be on that. Well, what about you? What do I need to get a hold of you? What do I need to take care of you? You take care of you. I'll worry about me, and then you'll find that meetup place later. Go over the safety plan in the event something at school does happen. You have all of these. You are more than welcome to use them and say, do you know what this means when they call this over the intercom? Do you know what this means when they call this over the intercom? Here's what I want you to do. What do you do in your classroom? They're really good with fire drills. And they are, honestly, even kindergartners are really good with lockdowns. It's sad that they know them that well, but they know them, and they are silent. They are like little mice. You don't even hear them.
I wonder, my grandson's in kindergarten, and when he gets scared, he just panics and screams, and I can say, you're the target, buddy.
Well, when they're all in a room full like that, and the lights are out, and the teachers do a really good job and some teachers will even, oddly enough, try to play games with them, like the quiet game, who can be the quietest, and they just try to keep them super, super quiet. Really, in the event of it happening, you are also told, we don't tell this to children, but teachers are told, if you're not hearing anything, let's say our hallways are A, B, and C. So if I'm on the A hallway, shooting is on the C hallway, there's windows on the A hallway, I'm allowed to take my class and run. I don't have to stay in the room. It's a gamble because you don't really know. But if I know, okay, I can hear shooting over there, I think we're safe over here, we're gonna go out this window and we're just gonna hightail it and run. Unfortunately, a lot of these out here are in the middle of nothing, so you don't have really a lot to run to. You're safer to stay in the classroom. And your kids know that. And the statistics show that a shooter that's walking down the hallway, if they go to a locked door, they're gonna keep walking, because they know that it takes more time to try to get into this locked room than it does to find the door that's unlocked. And that's just proven time and time again. They'll just ignore the locked rooms. So teachers know, students know, they know it better than we do sometimes. And they know to be quiet, even those kindergartners. You're going to turn off the news and stop talking about what you're seeing and hearing. It's so easy to sit at home and, oh, did you hear about that blah, blah, blah? And your kids are listening, and then they're getting afraid. Or you talk about the school shooting that happened, and you're showing fear in your voice. Your kids feed off of that. And even if this is the most horrendous thing for you and you don't want to, deal with it, you've got to pretend like it's okay. We've got this. Who's got this? Who's going to take care of you? And you just go back to, you're going to pray about it. We got this. And we just keep reassuring them. But stop watching the news. That's the worst thing, is to watch all the media just constant. It's kind of like when 9/11 happened and people just had the news on all the time. It's like, turn off the TV. Just turn it off. It's too much. It's repetitive. Get it out of your brain. And then we're going to talk about your school safety plan repeatedly if necessary. And just leave that to your child. If they want to talk about it, discuss it. If they don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it, because it may not even be in their brain. It's more in our brain as the adult than it is their brain. They're just kind of doing whatever and walking along with it. All right, so what more can I do as a parent or an adult? I'm concerned about this. I want to help. I'm going to be present. I'm going to make sure that I am present in my kid's life. I know what's going on. A lot of this is going to tie into the mental health thing we talked about last week, but it takes you being there and reading those signs in your kids and the signs of their friends, and hear what they're saying, hear what they're talking about. Because I know in the case of Dylan Klebold, his mom, she's come out and been very, very specific about, I wish I had paid attention. I wish I had done A, B, or C. And when we talk about the privacy, the secrecy in the bedroom, that was one of those things that she's like, I should have just gone in. I should have read his journal. I should have blah, blah, blah. Because she could have prevented something from happening. We're going to be observant. So we're going to observe our kids. We're going to observe their friends. Remember, as Pastor Marcus said, we're not there to be their friends. We're there to be their parents. They may not always like it when I say, hey, I think you should think about your friends. And the older they get, the harder that is, but I just have to keep repeating myself. I don't know that that's the best choice for you. They eventually have to make their own choices, but you're going to hope that they're being cautious. And then be responsible. If you are a gun owner, we're in East Texas and everybody seems to own a weapon out here. That's great, that's fine, but never think that your kids cannot get to your weapon. The best safes, the best hiding places, if kids really want to get to a weapon, even the best kid, they can get to it. And oddly enough, there's so many videos that show them how to do it, how to use it, even if you've never shown them. And you can teach as much gun safety as you want. But in the event that they're going through some type of mental health crisis, all of that's going to go out the window. And it can happen to the best kid. So if you've got those, all I can say is try not to add them advertise them a lot in your house. I know they're for safety. A lot of them are for hunting. In Canton last week, I'm sure you heard about the kid that got arrested. I'm sure it was an innocent thing, just went out hunting for the weekend, didn't even think about it, and had it in his car when he came back on campus. And you're on school property. They can search your car without just cause. They were just doing a sweep, and it hit on that car. So you've got to just be cautious, and you've got to be aware. And if your kids have access to weapons, or their friends have access to weapons, but your kids don't have access to weapons, be aware. Be aware, know what they're doing. One of the first things that we were hit with here was, it happened to do with KOZ, and they were talking about weapons and stuff. And one of the people had mentioned to us, well, how come you don't want your kids to learn about, firepower, and why don't you get a gun? And I was honest. I said, both of my children have mental health issues. Why would I bring that in my home? Why would I do that? I get our safety, but I have a God that I'm completely dependent on. I don't need a weapon to do that as long as they're in my home, because their health matters to me more than putting that object in my home. When we talk about mental health, we'll also be talking about other things in our home that we want to be aware of and just pay attention to. But gun safety, for one, everybody wants to take away arms. I'm great for people owning weapons. I just want people to be responsible and pay attention, especially when they're around kids. All right. Does anybody need a break? Bathroom break or anything? Okay, go ahead. We'll stop for a second. It's a lot to absorb. Okay. So the other thing is bullying. All right. 49.8% of tweens, 9 to 12 years old, said they experienced bullying at school, and 14.5% of tweens shared they experienced bullying online. Bullying has changed from when we were kids. It used to be called being picked on. Oh, they're just picking on you. Ignore it. Suck it up and move on. Some of that's still true, but about 20% of students ages 12 to 18 experienced bullying nationwide. The most recognized form of bullying in elementary school is physical violence. And if you've ever been to an elementary school campus, it's a lot of pushing and shoving and taking things away from people and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of breaking up little fights between little boys and all that kind of stuff. However, as prevalent as that physical violence is, verbal bullying is more common and can be more damaging than its physical counterpart. And I will say between the two, between boys and girls, boys are more physical, girls are more verbal. And also, boys tend to forget. Like, two boys will get into a spat with each other, and then the next day they're like best friends. Whereas girls will hold it just forever, and they'll never talk to them for the next 3 years. It's insane. Verbal bullying can come in the many forms, including taunting, threatening, or making fun of a student's gender. This is a hot topic right now. Wait till we get to mental health. It's everywhere. Religion, appearance, socioeconomic status, and mannerisms. We've done so much with teaching our children how to be inclusive, right? But we still are missing the mark. And to be honest, in some instances, kids are still learning themselves, especially when they're little. If something's different from them and it makes them uncomfortable, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to make fun of it. And that's a normal part of the process. And that's when your job is just to kind of teach them and guide them through that, about those feelings and stuff. According to recent studies, elementary school bullying is most commonly perpetrated by boys who look for opportunities to take part in physical bullying when teachers and adults aren't present or paying close attention. Always on the playground. Always on the playground. In the bathrooms are becoming a big deal, especially for fourth graders, and then in the crowded hallways. In elementary school, if they're still walking in a straight line, that's less likely to happen. But as we age and they're getting more freedoms to move from class to class, that gets a little bit more seen. They're also most likely to pick on younger children, give or take the location. And bullying that occurs among girls mainly involves social exclusion. Girls gang up against a victim as a way of exerting control. Girls are mean. They are mean. All right, in middle school, it looks a little bit different. It's kind of the same, but a little bit different. It often becomes an accepted part. They've been in elementary school and they're like, ugh, this is just what's gonna be. If they've been picked on in elementary school, they get to middle school and they hope things have changed, and sometimes it's like, well, okay, what happened in elementary school, I guess it's gonna keep happening. And it just keeps happening. And we've learned to accept it because we see it all the time. Bullying increases around 5th and 6th grade and continues to get worse until around 9th grade. That's a lot when those hormones are kicking in. So not only are they trying to figure out what they're feeling and their emotions, and they're going from 0 to 90 in 1 minute of a mood swing, they're now like, I'm trying to figure out where I fit in. Well, I need to fit in over here, so these people are making fun of this person, so I need to make fun of that person, or whatever's happening in that scenario. By about this time, we've got kids with cell phones. So this electronics, it really is changing the game of bullying to a not very good way of bullying. We just had an incident with a 6th grader that was moving into 7th grader, went to band camp. Somebody had made a TikTok video of this child, made a dummy account, posted it. The parent was livid, rightfully so, but all the other kids were just kind of like, what's the big deal? We are forgetting that actually is private. That deserves privacy. You can't take a picture of me and then post it on an account. But it's so hard to catch. And it's so hard unless you've got kids that tell you. The only way this parent found out was because another kid told her, hey, there's a video of so-and-so. And that's the only, otherwise she wouldn't have known. She would have not even known that was out there. Bullying in high school, it does decrease. It does tend to decrease. They're kind of finding their way. But verbal and emotional bullying can increase, taking on new forms, including social, racial, gender-based, and sexual bullying. If we're not familiar with sexual bullying, it's the boys and the girls, or the boys and the boys. Could be in the locker room, could be on the not playground, but like at the cafeteria. It's more like sexual harassment, and it kind of can turn into that sexual bullying. In addition, cyberbullying has become the weapon of choice for many bullies who use the internet and electronic formats to harass and torment their victims. From posting gossip and rumors on social media to threatening someone via text or email, this form of bullying has become rampant throughout high schools. Some cases have even led to suicide of victims. David's Law. We were in San Antonio when David's Law went into effect, and it was a kid at a school called Alamo Heights, had been just tormented by bullies, and he ended up committing suicide. David's Law was passed because of him. His parents pushed and pushed and pushed. So if it is social bullying, it is texting, it's all that kind of stuff, it is an offense. They can go to jail for that. And if it's like in this boy's case, because it was considered manslaughter, the kid went to prison on that charge. So it's a serious thing because you're causing somebody else to do harm. Too many times when we see kids on phones and somebody's texting them and they think they're their friend and then they lead them in the wrong path, and now it's a joke and now we're playing with it and we think it's fun to torment these kids. And these kids are ending up sad and having major issues dealing with it because they can't handle it. And I don't blame them. I didn't grow up in that age, and I can't imagine what it'd be like for everything to be out. Which leads us to, in high school, a lot of it is show me a picture. Send me a picture. Within seconds, everybody will have that picture. It happened like 2 weeks ago. A girl at the junior high took an inappropriate picture, sent it to one person, and next thing we knew at the middle school that it was flooding high school all the way down to the middle school on people's phones. They just start texting them out. She'll never get that back. She'll never get that back. I don't know why she thought she needed to do that. I have no idea what the whole story is. But once it's done, it's done. And everybody's seen it. And you can't get it back. So when I say there's like no privacy, there's no privacy. There's no privacy on your kids' phones. I'm going to check your phone. I'm going to check your history. If you're seeing something, I want you to come to tell me that you saw it, and we can discuss it. Symptoms of being bullied. I want to preface that this is also very similar to other issues, anxiety and all those kind of things, but this is kind of the things you want to look for, especially if your kid's been talking about so-and-so's picking on them. Social withdrawal, they don't want to be involved in things. School issues, the decreased academic performance. If they were an A student, suddenly they've gone down to a C student or a D student. School avoidance is a big one. I don't want to go to school. My tummy hurts. I don't want to go to school today. That's the usual one that they try to get out with. Sleep issues, depending upon the age of the child. Bedwetting, trouble going to sleep, trouble staying to sleep. Mental health issues, low self-esteem, they're sad, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, eating disorders, and cutting. And all of that can be included in that symptoms of being bullied. They're trying to find another way to make those feelings be known without verbally telling you this is happening to me. And remember that, again, when we use that bedroom as a place of secrets, those are those secrets they're keeping to themselves. They're not telling you what's going on. On the issue with eating disorders and cutting, two most obvious things is if you have a kid that always wears short sleeve shirts and suddenly they're constantly wearing a hoodie and they're constantly wearing long sleeve shirts. That's a good sign that they're cutting. We've had kids that can hide it really well. Sometimes it's on their legs. Just always keep your eyes open. Don't be afraid to say, I need to see your arms. If it's eating disorders, if they're going to the restroom right after they eat. If they're not, I'm not hungry today, and you've seen a pattern of it, start the probing. Start asking questions. Start digging into it. Be that pain in the rear that they don't want, because their life is more important than that. What can you do? Well, you want to teach your child what bullying looks like. It doesn't look like sometimes what they think. They think it's always just some kid pushed them on the playground. It can be more slick than that, and it's just something that they don't even really think of, or they don't even know that's happening. Examples: gossip, name calling, text bombing, which is malicious messages that cause an app to crash. Scribbling on someone's work, that's a big one in elementary school. You've got a paper, so I'm going to write something inappropriate on your paper, and now you have to try to show it to the teacher. Leaving a friend out of a situation, that's elementary, right? Mean Girls Club. Criticism, whispering behind someone's back, making up false rumors. The making up false rumors is really more of a high school thing. They're pretty bad about that. Whispering behind someone's back, that happens in elementary school for the little mean kids, like, and then you get the girl that goes, so-and-so is doing it. Yeah, elementary school. That's why I don't teach elementary. All right. Know what your school's bullying policies are. If you think your child is being bullied, the first time it happens, document it. If it happens again, I always try to tell my children, did you tell a teacher? That's going to be my first step, because most administrators will say, well, did you tell a teacher? Did you tell a teacher? After that, I'm going to document again. If it's a problem, then I'm going to go to the administrator, and I'm going to be that parent that they don't want to hear from. And sometimes my child could be at fault too. It could be a two-way street, and I'm only hearing one side. So I try to give it a chance to be like, okay, is this a mutual thing, or is this really a one-sided, they're coming after you type issue? Bullying of any form is not tolerated in our school, whether carried out by a child and an adult. And a lot of schools now have that policy where it's a no bullying zone, is what they call it. Communicate with your school's administration and document. I cannot say this enough. Document. I would send an email before I would make a phone call. Because, correct. Because it's a written form. And you want to say, I sent it to you. And when they call you, you write it down. Principal called me on Monday, October 2nd at 2:30 p.m. This is what we talked about. Document. Like I said, make sure the date, time, and who you're speaking to, or send an email. If you have an email, just keep it and drop it in a folder, and just keep all that communication. I always think it's better to have something in writing, just because I have physical proof. Monitor the school's response and document some more. If the bullying continues, move up the chain of command. You've started with the teacher, your kid talked to the teacher, you talked to the teacher, nothing's still happening. Now we're talking to the principal. I've given the principal 2 opportunities, and I have gotten really good at emails. They're very good, very crafty. My first email is usually like, here it is. My second email with the same person is like, hey, I'm not sure you got my last email. That's kind of my way of saying, you didn't get back to me. If I have to go at you a third time, it's not good. I better hear from you after that. Hey, I don't think you got the first one. I'm always going to go on the side of, maybe you really you got a lot of stuff going on, you just missed it. Then after you're not getting a response from a principal, and there are principals that really just kind of push this stuff to the side, you're going to email your principal again, and you're going to carbon copy it to the superintendent. Once an administrator sees that superintendent's been included on that, you'll be surprised how fast that principal will reach back out to you, because superintendents don't want to deal with that. Like, what are you doing? Why is this parent emailing me? And then I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going, recycling that page and page and page and page until something gets resolved. If you're trying to switch classes, if there's an issue between your child and another child and you're trying to switch classes, it's going to take you being persistent to make that happen. They don't want to switch classes because it's a lot. It's a lot for the teacher. It's a lot for the student. They don't want to move classes. But if you feel like your kid is in a bad situation, and I'm not talking about just the occasional, hey, I'm not having a good day at school, or so-and-so said something mean. I'm talking about it's persistent. It's every day. They're starting to show symptoms of this is really getting to them. You have the right to make your voice heard and change that situation for your child. So you want to know the rights. If you ever are in this situation, you can just simply go to the Texas Education Code. It's listed under TEA, and it'll tell you all the rights you have in the bullying prevention. There are laws, and you can, if a kid is pushed on the playground and gets hurt, if a kid is shoved into a locker, it's not as much anymore, just it's an okay thing. And just a little FYI, once a kid turns 10, by law, they can be arrested. 10 years old is when they can start arresting children. So, not that you want to have that happen. I'm just saying it happens. It's 10, but thanks. All right. Anybody need a break? Bullying's a lot. Trafficking. We were all on trafficking after that movie came out. And if you've noticed, it's sort of died down. We're not hearing about it as much anymore. Out of sight, out of mind. Trafficking, the actual definition, is an unlawful act of transporting or coercing people in order to benefit from their work or service, typically in the form of forced labor or sexual exploitation. We forget about the labor part. We hear a lot about sex trafficking, but we forget about the labor trafficking that exists. And that's really, I grew up in San Antonio, so we had a lot of families, mainly Hispanic families, that, kids were like 9 or 10 working in the mom's taco shop. Really, that's against the law. But nobody says anything. They do it anyways because it's family and they're still working. But there are some kids that are honestly forced to do this. They've been taken away and they work. All right, just kind of checking to see how much you know. The majority of sex trafficking victims are adults from other countries. True or false? It is false. Most sex trafficking victims are women and children. Up to half of all trafficking victims are women. And women and girls together account for 72% of victims, most of whom are trafficked for sex, according to the United Nations fact sheet. While victims are brought to the United States from other countries, many victims, if not most, come from within the United States. Come from within our own country. And don't be mistaken, boys are in this as well. At one point, the number one age group that they wanted in boys was 10 years. Next question. All of these industries are among the most common job sectors for child labor trafficking. True or false? It's true. Oops. It's this one. It's true. Child labor trafficking in the United States may occur in a wide variety of industries, especially in informal jobs. Job sectors in which youth most commonly are exploited include domestic servitude, construction, janitorial or cleaning services, door-to-door magazine sales, agriculture, health and beauty services, begging or peddling, and hotel and restaurant business. If a child or adolescent's parent is trafficked for sex or labor, the child or adolescent is almost sure to be trafficked as part of the same scheme. True or false? False. It is important to remember that the parents of the child may be victims of labor or sex trafficking with or without victimization of the child. You kind of think they go hand in hand, but not all the time, not always. So I have a video. I want you to watch it, and then we're gonna kind of talk about it.
Did you get your homework done?
Yes, Mom, can you please leave?
Okay, fine.
I gotta go finish my homework at Jessica's.
Again?
Yeah.
Okay, have fun.
Bye.
Hey, you have 1 hour. You have another appointment.
I know, it's not my first time.
So what'd you notice? Anything else? Yeah, Mom didn't pick up on anything. It was just very dismissive again And then she went. And as a parent, if I walk into my kid's room and they shut something really quickly, my flag's already up. Like, okay, you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. And she could have just been innocently doing a paper, but she already had that habit of secrecy going on in her room. And mom was not engaged in the process. None of that. Hey, let me drive you to so-and-so's house. Who's picking you up? How are you getting there? There were no questions following that. And that was actually pretty surprising to me. But this happens more than you know. There's a misunderstanding about children that are trafficked. We think that it's always they're kidnapped. That's not always the case. Does that happen? Yes. Sometimes it's honestly they've been lured into it. There's a video that I'm gonna skip just for the sake of time, but it's called the Romeo. It is a billion-dollar business, trafficking. It has now surpassed drug trafficking. It is crazy. And they will send them into schools, the Romeos or the girls, and they'll send them in and they'll kind of look for a certain kind of kid. And it's not even talking about hair color. We're talking about a kind of kid. They want the kid who's more by themselves, the kid who seems to have a low self-esteem, because then they kind of swoop in and show them the attention that they're wanting. And as they're it's a grooming process that they don't even realize is happening. And it's a boyfriend that gets them into it and happens the first time, and then suddenly it's happening again and they don't even realize it. That now I'm gonna tell your parents if you don't continue to do this, and that they're stuck in this web that they can't get out of. In case you didn't know, Canton is number 2 in the state of Texas for trafficking. And it's because of trade days. A lot of those hotels that are taken over are not really because people are coming for trade days. Number 1 is El Paso, which makes sense because they're right on the border. Texas is within the top, in the top 10 for states with trafficking issues. We are in a hot spot. I didn't know this till we moved here. We're in a hot spot here in Canton because we're right off I-20. And we've got all these truckers, just put them in a truck and they're gone. That's the scariest thing, because once they get on that highway, you're not gonna get them back. I mean, they're just gone. So, besides the things I'm gonna tell you to keep your kids safe, I'm gonna say if you go to trade days with your kids, keep them with you. Keep your eyes on them. If they're going to the bathroom, you're going to the bathroom too. I mean, I was that parent that, when my boys got to a certain age, they didn't want to go in the girls' bathroom anymore. I get that. You're gonna go in the boys' bathroom? Well, mom's gonna have her foot in the boys' bathroom, and then the door was open. I never had any men that were like, what are you doing? They were like, I get it. I'll be a mama bear. I don't care. You've got to keep your eyes on them. Another one of the things that I learned was if you go into a public restroom, if it's a one-stall restroom, go in there first. The adult goes in there first, scan, make sure nobody's hiding behind the door, and then let your child go in. Because there are times where they could be standing behind the door and you don't realize what's happening. And once that door's locked, you're kind of stuck. So go in first, scan behind the door, and then come back out. If it's a public restroom where there's a lot of stalls, obviously go in. Educate your kids about human trafficking. Be honest with them. I'll be honest, we had an incident last school year, October-ish, where Mark took off. And if you don't know where we live kind of off I-20. He took off from our house and went all the way down to Aftershook. He had no idea what he just did. It was that teenager, I'm mad, I'm upset, took off, did not realize how close he was to I-20. Even the sheriff that brought him back to the house was just like, that was not a smart choice. He could have easily been picked up and gone. My biggest fear, because that just changes their life forever in one fell swoop, one hormonal moment. Be careful at any of these gas stations along I-20. If you're getting out of the car, you're leaving your kids in the car, make sure that the door's closed. Make sure they're locked on the sides you're not on. I know you get into the driver's side door, but you have to turn the car off anyways. Lock those doors. It's only for a few minutes that your kids are in there while you're pumping gas, and then get back in the car. You'll want to be honest with them. Given their age, you want to be honest with them about what it looks like. We used to do so much stranger danger, and we don't do that anymore. We don't teach kids about that, and so that everybody's a friend. This was the one that's from the perspective of the lover boy that comes into the school and kind of charms this girl. And you can watch it on the thing, but for the sake of time, I'm going to skip through it. Obviously, communicate with your kids and let them talk to you without judgment. I know that's hard sometimes, especially when you're like, what were you thinking? But you're still coming at it from love and protection, but let them know that they can talk to you if there's even a suspicion of it. Know your kids' passwords. Know what's on their phone if you choose to give them a phone. A good rule is as long as you live under our roof, we have access to passwords, emails, texts, etc. Please know that they can make dummy accounts. They're smart enough, they can make a dummy account. So even though they're like, oh yeah, I gave it to you, they could have another one. So just kind of keep your eyes on that. Technological devices now exist that you can kind of watch your kids better. GPS tracking devices, which can be placed on phones. A lot of parents do that Life 360, especially when their kids start driving. Clothes, backpacks. If you've got younger children, the Apple AirTags. They actually have, if you go on Amazon, it's like a little clip. You stick the AirTag in it, and it pins to their shirt or their pants. And you can even do it like inside, so that if they do end up taken, whoever it is took them didn't realize it was attached to them, and it helps you track them if you're an Apple user. If you go with the whole watch situation, just know that if they do get taken by somebody else, that person's going to take that watch. So that being on them is probably not really going to help you in the long run. But those Apple AirTags are really, really a good thing. And then I've heard people say that when you go to places like fairs and stuff like that, take a picture of your kids when you enter so that you have what they're wearing that day on, so in case they disappear. And we know little kids wander off. We could just be playing a game and they've wandered off. Well, at least you have something of visual. And then, of course, DNA scent kits. I did not even know this existed, where you have one put aside that in case something does happen and they use the dogs have a scent, an automatic scent to go. Instead of like, bring me a shirt, bring me this, whatever, it's a kit. I had no idea. So there are lots of tools out there to help monitor and keep track of your kids. I've seen a lot of negative about your kids deserve privacy. They're thinking they're being controlled. I don't care. Your safety. If I can keep you safe, I'm going to keep you safe. Because once you leave my home, when you've grown and flown, I don't have that anymore. It's on you. I'm still going to feel that way, but I don't have as much power. But I do now, and I don't want to have to answer for the fact that I let that happen. And then know your kids' friends. I don't really let our kids go over to other people's houses unless we really, 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 really know them. I make them kind of come over to our house, and that may seem a little overprotective, but I'm just not doing it. I've just heard maybe it's because I'm in education, I've heard too many stories. I'm just not doing it. It could be the best kid on the planet, but even the best kid on the planet can make mistakes, or I not know what's happening with their home life. At a point in my life, my mom had dropped me off at somebody's house. It was her boss from work. They were friends, and I don't remember the whole scenario, but I remember crawling under the bed with the friend that I was hanging out with, and her mom was calling the police, and police were coming in. The dad, that was an ex-husband, had come back with a gun in the house. They're yelling and screaming in the other room, and me and my friend are under the bed. And I'm like, my mom completely trusted this woman. I don't blame her, but she didn't. She had no idea that was going to happen. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll just keep you at my house. It's okay. It's all good. And then that's just kind of what they were like, feed them. You feed them, they will come, right? If your house has food, kids will come. This one surprised me. It's just a little snippet, but this one was a part of a trafficking talk.
So the trafficker will train all of the kids, or at least some of the kids, to be recruiters, to go and get other kids and bring them, and if they do that, then they don't get beat. Or their little sibling doesn't get turned out. So their job is to go out and find others. And so we have had cases where known recruiters, are teenagers, and they can be female or male, a lot of times they're female, they start going to a church and they start going to the youth group specifically to go shopping for some naive ones that they can recruit out. Or traffickers will show up and be a part of the church and try to get close and scope out the teenagers, and then maybe they can send in that teenage recruiter later.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was complete news to me. The one place you think, oh, it's totally safe, church. Because what are we known for at church? Oh, come on, be one of us. It's great. We don't have our alert buttons up. And that's not to say start looking at everybody like they're trafficking, but we at least need to be aware. And we at least need to know that, yes, this happens. If something seems off, I feel like God gave women their sixth sense for a purpose. There's a reason why men will be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we're like, like something's off. And they're like, it's a great guy. There's a reason why we have that innately built into us. So if you sense that, speak up, say something. You'd rather be wrong and have to say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say that you were doing that, than not say anything and it be the opposite. All right, so you're going to ask yourself, what do you want your child's bedroom to be? A place of secrets or a place of rest? Keep things in the living room. Let their bedrooms be a place of rest. My kids only have their bed, a bookshelf, I think one of them had 2 bookshelves, and then a few toys. It is pretty much, it's a blanket room because I want them to be out with us. At certain ages, your kids are going to go in their room and they're going to play. They're going to play with their little dolls. They're going to play whatever. Pop in occasionally. You want to come outside and play in the living room? Is it annoying because you may be sitting there going, I just need some quiet. They're in the room. Yes, but I want them to feel the freedom to come into the living room because that's where we are as a family. Now, if I'm taking a nap, that's different. But all right, so how do we do our best to make this happen? Well, we must stop being oblivious to the world in which we live. And if you read my Facebook post, that's my number one thing is everybody goes, whoa, God's doing amazing things. And he is. That is not a lie. But he also wants us to be aware. There's a reason why he tells us in the Bible the signs that are coming. Look for these signs. There's a reason why we know that stuff. There's a reason why we have to be open. And as we continue and we talk about building our villages, the goal would be that we all have a village. You guys may not be great friends with them, but now you've seen their kids. You're familiar with them. You get it. If you see something's a little bit off, now you can say, hey, Heather, I kind of noticed that Cooper seems to be hanging with this one kid, and he's kind of different when he's around him. That's a safe conversation to have. And even though she may be like, who are you? You've said it. You've become part of that village. It's like, hey, I care about this kid. They're not mine, but I care about them. And that's what we want to be. We want to start getting to that point where we're just all looking out for each other. Because as we see that clock ticking down, there are certain things that are getting worse, and we've got to start coming together and working together. All right, last thing is just a bit of we've got this.
Soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. raise me up to more than I can be.
So I feel like that's a really good representation of what we do with our kids. It doesn't matter what they're going through. They're going to fall, and we're going to be right there, and we're going to raise them up to do our best to get them to that finish line and cross that finish line. That's our ultimate goal. And that also says for us, we are here for each other, because as parents, as grandparents, we fall a lot. And sometimes we need somebody to come alongside us and go, I got you. We're going to get through this together. So we're going to get through this together as families and help our kids move forward and win this race that God has put in front of us. I will see you next time.
All right, let's give you a round of applause. Thank you for that, dear. All right, let's just go ahead and close out in a quick prayer. Thank you for that. It was a lot of work. Wow. Lord Jesus, thank you for putting this on Christy's heart, and just the hours of research and just the burden for our children that we all have. It can be scary sometimes, but you don't want us to be scared. You want us to be aware. You want us to be strong, and so that we can guide the most precious resource to grow up in the way of the Lord. So children are truly arrows in the quiver of a warrior, Lord. So just help us be aware. Thank you for these meetings where we can get current information and be aware so we can be the best grandparents, parents, caregivers, community members to children we can. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.